dyeing yarn is keeping track of your recipes. And in order to do that, I've come up with a system for myself so that all of my repeatable colorways come out as close to the way that they were first intended as possible. Even though each batch will be different, by having the recipe and by following the same process each time, I'm able to get as consistent results as possible. I always say that dyeing is somewhere between an art and a science. You obviously need the creativity to be able to come up with the colours and the ideas behind them, but then you need the science and the accuracy to be able to create those colours over and over again. When I'm creating a colour, I start with my trusty notebook, and I will write down in that everything that I do to create that colourway, and it'll end up with scribbles and it will end up with dye all over it, but it's the best way to kind of get everything down and without taking too much time, and I can sort of tweak it and alter it as I go and create that colour. Once it's dry and I've had a chance to reskein it, maybe knit or crochet something with it and see what it really looks like, then I decide if it's a colour that I would like to repeat. And if it is, then I put it into my iPad in OneNote. And what I do is create a file for each. So I categorize them by the type that they are. I then name the yarn and I put the recipe in, how many skeins, how long it was soaked for, how much water I put in the pot, the amount of vinegar that I put in, and then each of the steps, whether the skein was unwound or had knots or how it was treated, and then the amount of colour for each. And I break that down into steps to then be able to reproduce. Sometimes I will draw a diagram to show how I may have laid out the yarn or where I put the different colours, and I also will then put a finished photograph in there as well, so I sort of have a reference point as to where it might end up. A couple of them I've actually gone through and taken photographs on each stage as I've gone along, so I have a colour progression, but I haven't gone into that much detail with all of them. And so far so good, I've been able to reproduce the colours based on these instructions that I've kept for myself. I do still keep all of my original notes in my notebook, and this doesn't sit with me when I'm dyeing. It stays well away from the water. But I keep all of my original notes because sometimes when I go back and look at my e-version, there might be something that I'm a bit unsure of. I might have left out a step, or I might have written down a number incorrectly. So it's good to go back to the original jottings and notes. Sometimes in my original notes, I might put a comment that a colour along the way looked really good and could potentially lead to a new and different colourway. So that's the sort of thing that the notebook is good for. And then the iPad, I can sit up on the shelf just above where I dye, and I can quickly scroll through and reference the different parts of the recipe, and it is out of the way and is really, really easy to follow along with.